Good morning and welcome to ICRP 2023, the 7th International Symposium on the System of Radiological Protection. In proper Japanese style, we're starting on time, so if you're not seated, please be seated. We will begin. This session consists of several welcome remarks, followed by the Lindell lecture, and we'll get right to it. First welcome remark comes from Yamanaka-sensei, NRA chairman. Please, Yamanaka-sensei, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shinsuke Yamanaka from NRA, Japan. As the chair of the Nuclear Regulation Authority, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations on convening the 7th International Symposium on the System of Radiological Protection. I would like to warmly welcome all attendees, including radiological protection experts, researchers, and other interested parties. The International Commission on Radiological Protection has provided recommendations on protection against ionizing radiation as the world's most authoritative academic organization in this field. These recommendations form the internationally agreed framework of radiological protection. Japan has respected and adopted this framework to establish and implement regulations on radiation and nuclear safety. In this context, we are paying the greatest attention to the ICRP's general recommendations as they provide a foundation for the relevant laws and regulatory system. It should also be noted that the ICRP system of radiological protection, especially the concept of exposure situations, has been referenced as a guiding principle for developing and implementing various measures following the accidents at TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. It was this accident that compelled the form of nuclear safety regulations in Japan. The Nuclear Regulatory Authority NRA has established in 2012 to prevent the recurrence of such tragic events to restore confidence in Japan's nuclear regulatory body, both domestically and internationally, to rebuild the system of the nuclear regulations by placing the highest priority on public safety and to establish a true culture for safety. In brief, the NRA's mission is to protect the general public and the environment through rigorous and reliable regulations of nuclear activities. So this mission is also shared by Radiation Council, which is placed under the NRA to ensure consistency in technical standards on radiological safety regulations. So its role has been strengthened since 2017 to enable incorporating up-to-date knowledge of radiological protection, including the ICRP's recommendations, into national laws and regulations in a timely fashion. Now, Radiation Council takes initiative to collect internationally shared information and have authority to make recommendations to relevant government agencies as necessary. So in this manner, the NRA has, as well as Radiation Council, pays close attention to international progress in the field of radiological protection. I understand that this symposium will provide an opportunity for deepening discussions on building blocks for the ICRP's next general recommendations. As a country which has experienced a nuclear accident, Japan is involved in international discussions more actively than before. So in this respect, it is highly significant for us to host this symposium, this important event. It will also help mobilize the expertise in our country towards next general recommendations. As stated in the theme of this symposium, the evolution of radiological protection, science, and beyond. It is important to deepen the discussion not only on science, but also on ethics and practical experience. There are three pillars of the system of radiological protection, and none of them should be ignored. One of the important lessons we learned in the aftermath of the TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi NPS accident is one size doesn't fit all. Taking a single uniform approach is of little help in the real world. So what is desired is not a prescriptive framework based solely on those criteria, but a more flexible, adaptable guide for addressing real-life problems. Development of such a guide requires a solid foundation that is based on the three pillars: science, ethics, and experience. The ICRP is expected to play a crucial role in this regard, and I hope the lessons we learned will reflect it in the discussions on formulating the next general recommendations, leading to further improvement of the system of radiological protection. The National Institute for Quantum Science and Technology, QST, hosts this symposium and has played a central role in its preparation. As a technical support organization of the NRA, QST is conducting research and development activities related to radiological protection. Among the important R&D topics in its medium and long-term plan is R&D and creation of social system to protect the public from radiation exposure. Specifically, QST has been promoting the research on radiological effects on support for the reconstruction of Fukushima, research on radiation emergency medicine, and improvement of nuclear emergency preparedness and human resource development. I hope the QST's commitment to this symposium will broaden the perspective of its staff and further improve capabilities as a core research institute for radiological protection in Japan. Finally, I'd like to express my sincere respect for the effort of the Executive Committee, Program Committee, and Local Organizing Committee. I look forward to productive discussions during the symposium. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yamanaka-sensei, for your introductory remarks. Next, we have Koyasu-sensei from QST, our host organization for this week.
Thank you, Dr. Clement. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shigeo Koyas, President of the National Institutes for Quantum Science and Technology, in QST in short. And on behalf of the organizers, I'd like to welcome all of you and say a few words at the beginning of the symposium. It is a great honor and privilege to host ICRP 2023 together with ICRP. Now let me introduce a little bit about the QST. And QST was established in 2016 by a merger of National Institute of Radiological Science and a few divisions of JAEA, Japan Atomic Energy Agency. So QST has led with a new institute, but has a long history. Our mission is to promote quantum science and technology in a comprehensive and integrated manner, and to promote a new development beyond the conventional technologies, not only in the field of materials, information, communication, and energy, but also in environmental sciences, life sciences, and medicine. As introduced by Yamanaka Sensei, of course, one of the important missions is radiological protection. One of QST's predecessors, National Institute of Radiological Science, was established in the aftermath of the accident of Daigo Fukuryuma, or Lucky Dragon, in which 23 Japanese fishermen were exposed to an H-bomb nuclear test at Bikini Atoll. So for nearly 70 years since then, QST has been committed to raise the level of radiological science by a strong commitment to the science and development on the effect of radiation on humans, nuclear emergency medicine, and medical use of radiation. And we also try to strengthen the Japanese preparedness and responses to nuclear accidents. And we are designated by NRA as Japan's national core center in coordinating the nuclear disaster medical systems. So in order to accomplish our mission, the international cooperation and networking is of great importance. And we actually cooperate with many international organizations, including ICRP. The other aspect of radiological protection is the medical exposure. So particularly in Japan, we use a lot of radiation diagnosis, so therefore the medical exposure is quite high. And QST itself has been involved in the development of radiation-based cancer therapy. For example, the heavy ion cancer therapy for many years, which was actually established and promoted by QST, and it is now very competitive worldwide. Furthermore, we are still continue to develop new area of cancer therapies, including we call quantum scalpel, which is an advanced version of heavy ion accelerator-based cancer therapy, and targeted radioisotope therapy using astatine and actinium, in order to pave a way, hopefully, future where no one dies of cancer. However, the safety of patients and healthcare worker is prerequisite for the spread of the radiation-based medical technologies. So therefore, this symposium is quite important for us too. So as ICLP 2023 will give us a good opportunity to review and revise the radiological protection system. And lastly, I'd like to mention that this symposium is supported by IAEA and many other international organizations. I'd like also to thank LRA and the Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, and Ministry of Environment for their support. I do hope that this ICLP 2023 will serve as a meaningful opportunity for all of us to share the latest information and future prospects and exchange our ideas on the future of this field. Let me conclude my address by thanking all of you again attending our ICLP 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Koyasu Sensei. Next up, we have Sasaki Sensei, representing the Japan Health Physics Society, one of the two organizations having their annual meetings in parallel this week. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. On behalf of Japan Health Physics Society, JHPS, I'd like to address some welcome greetings at the opening of ICRP Symposium. My name is Michiya Sasaki, the Vice President of JHPS, and I will also be a chair of this annual meeting of JHPS, which will be held at the same venue from November 9th. Normally, President Nobuyuki Sugiura would have delivered his greetings, but I'd like to apologize for not being able to be here due to overseas business trip. The JHPS is honored to participate as a special partner in this local organizing committee and program committee for ICRP 2023 Symposium, and to cooperate in the preparation for this successful event. We are also pleased that the annual meeting of JHPS will be held at the same time, as it will be a good opportunity for our members to have academic discussion with many participants from overseas and to renew the friendship. I myself worked at ICRP Scientific Secretariat for 2 years from 2012 as a first assistant scientific secretary, and learned how important the ICRP is in a wide range of international areas in radiological protection. As you know, the discussions are currently underway to revise the general recommendation, and I am looking forward to hearing what progress will be made at the symposium. I'd like to thank ICRP Chair, Dr. Werner Lium, Scientific Secretary, Dr. Chris Clement, and Kai Sensei, Kanda Sensei, the Japanese Radiation Research Society President, Tashiro Sensei, and other relevant people from all over the world and all over Japan. Finally, I'd like to express my gratitude and congratulations to the participants for this successful opening of today's ICRP 2023 Symposium, and pray for success of this symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sasaki Sensei. Tashiro Sensei will now speak on behalf of Japan Radiation Research Society.
Thank you very much, Chris. It is with great honor that I address you today as the president of the Japanese Radiation Research Society, JRRS, at the opening of ICRP 2023. The concurrent hosting of ICRP 2023 by Dr. Kanda and the 66th annual meeting of JRRS by Dr. Kakinuma here at the same venue holds significant meaning in three aspects. The first one is Dr. Kakinuma has chosen the theme of the annual meeting of JRRS, True Understanding of Radiation, aiming for harmony and coexistence with society, disseminating the results of radiation research in an understandable way to the public, thereby spreading correct knowledge about radiation, has become especially crucial for us after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. This task is of equal importance to ICRP, I understand, underlining the significance of our simultaneous meetings. The second is that I had the opportunity to talk with Mongolian radiologists during my visit to Mongolia last week. And in Mongolia, I understand that radiologists are involved in radiation protection, especially now as the country moves forward with new uranium mining developments. They express a need for up-to-date knowledge about radiation protection, not just in the medical radiology, but also for mine workers, and sought collaboration in research exchange and human resource development. This visit made me aware of the global need for knowledge in radiation protection as you provide. In Japan, the third point, there is a growing expectation for the increased participation of female researchers. The fact that these two scientific meetings are being led by outstanding female researchers has profound implications for Japanese science, suggesting that radiation research is leading the Japanese science community in this meaning. I sincerely hope that ICRP 2023 will prove to be beneficial for everyone present here. And I want to say thank you for all the organizers for preparing this wonderful venue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Toshiro Sensei. And now Werner Room, ICRP Chair, will give introduction and welcoming remarks, followed by the Lindell Medal proceedings. Werner, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here together with you at the 7th International Symposium of the International Commission on Radiological Protection, ICRP. Now, the ICRP symposia are very important for ICRP for various reasons. And we have initiated a series of those symposiums beginning in 2012. And then roughly every second year, on average every second year, we have organized such a meeting, such a symposium, and now we are here in Tokyo. Welcome to Tokyo. Of course, such events can only be made possible with a lot of support by various organizations, and we are very grateful to QST, to JRRS and JHPS, who supported us in our wish to come to Japan. But also I would like to thank many, many others who supported and worked behind the scenes to make this event possible. Now, I already mentioned that the symposia are very important for ICRP for various reasons. They offer a possibility of exchange of ideas, of discussions. They also offer the possibility to listen to feedback given by the participants or by others. And we also know, and that's also a reason why it's important, that the rest of the world closely watches what we are doing here. And I will give you an example in a minute. But first of all, let me very briefly mention or explain the philosophy of the program behind. As you know, we have 3 days, and every day starts with a keynote lecture and a plenary session. You will also see that on the first day today and on Thursday, we will continue with plenary sessions. All the 3 days see in the afternoon poster viewing. So you will, and I invite you already to visit the poster sessions. We will have posters from JRRS, from participants of the symposium, and from JHPS. Tomorrow, you see that the structure is a little bit different. You see the green area in the middle. Here we have parallel sessions. And the parallel session mean we have decided to go for parallel sessions as well because there are so many topics which are now on the table at stake to be discussed. And these green sessions also offer a possibility for us to explain what ICRP task groups are currently doing, and in particular, to explain topics and discuss with you topics which we feel might be relevant on our journey to review, first of all, to review the current system of radiological protection. But that's not all. That's not the end of the story. We already heard a little bit that there are many more events, satellite events, being organized around the symposium, and I've just copied them from the website. If you are interested to know more about those events, please go to the website. So we have events organized by the Japan's Association of Radiological Technologists and the Japanese Society of Radiological Technology, by the Society of Risk Analysis, for Risk Analysis Japan. There's the annual meeting of the Japanese Society of Radiation Safety Management. We have an event, Radiological Protection in Radioactive Waste Disposal, organized by the Atomic Energy Society of Japan, and an event on low-dose and low-dose rate radiation research, jointly organized by the Japanese Radiation Research Society and the Institution of Environmental Sciences, which happened already yesterday. But still, this is not all. We have also a number of related events related to the symposium. And for example, we already heard there are several annual meetings. For example, the annual meeting of the Japanese Society of Nuclear Medicine and of the Japanese Society of Nuclear Medicine Technology. We have an event organized by the National Metrology Institute of Japan. We heard about the annual meeting of the Japan Health Physics Society, the International Young Generation Network Workshop takes place here at the hotel, and we already heard about the 66th annual meeting of the Japanese Radiation Research Society. So there are a lot of events being placed around our symposium, and for us this is very important because this makes also our symposium more attractive, because there are more people here who also will show up at our symposium. Also, they will also go to their specific events. Finally, also would like to mention the International Conference on the Safety of Radioactive Waste Management, Decommissioning, Environmental Protection and Remediation, Ensuring Safety and Enabling Sustainability. This conference is organized by the IAEA in Vienna, just the very same week. And so both the agency and ICRP, we thought we should do something together. And actually on Wednesday, we will have a joint session on radiation protection and sustainable development, where some of ICRP members contribute. And this is organized in a style of a plenary session, and it will be transmitted and shown at the conference in Vienna in the plenary. So a lot is going on here, and I can just imagine how complicated it was to organize everything together. And this is thanks again to the organizers here in Japan who made that possible. Now, I already mentioned that what we are doing on ICRP symposia is not only for us, and we know that the rest of the world is closely looking at what we are doing here. And I give you one example, and I would like to remind you on our last symposium, which was held in Vancouver in Canada last year. And at the symposium, we, ICRP, issued what we called the Vancouver Call for Action to strengthen expertise in RP worldwide. We announced this at the symposium last year. We posted the call on our website, and more recently, we published it in the open literature in radiation and environmental biophysics. So it was out there, and people could read our views on to strengthen expertise worldwide in radiation protection. Now, the Vancouver Call, for those who have not yet seen it, includes a review of the situation on radiological protection in individual countries, in Europe, and worldwide. So, and we got the impression that indeed in many countries there is a lack in expertise and support of radiation science and radiation protection. And so the Vancouver call calls or asks national governments and funding agencies to strengthen resources for radiological protection research. The call addresses national research laboratories and other institutions to launch and sustain long-term research projects. It addresses universities to develop undergraduate and graduate university programs and to make students aware of job opportunities in radiation-related fields. And more generally, it asks us, actually all of us, to use plain language when interacting with the public and decision makers about radiological protection to make them understand why radiological protection is indeed important. And finally, the call asks to foster general awareness and of proper uses of radiation and radiological protection through education and training. Now, this was the Vancouver Call last year, and in the meantime, we got already first feedback. And just to give you one example, there was a very detailed study in the United States on the situation of occupations dealing or using radiation, and they looked, it's probably too small, not so important, but they looked at different professions. For example, health physics workforce, medical physics workforce, and so on and so forth, nuclear engineering, radiation biology, radiochemistry, and analyzed the situation in terms of competence and training and education in those areas. And the lead authors of these studies, they published just recently a letter in support of ICRP's Vancouver Call for Action. So this is one example that really what we are doing here on our symposia is important and is closely followed by others who do not participate, but for whom the topics we are discussing are important. And to give you another example on that, you may have read the recent issue of Physics Today. In that issue, there is an article specifically highlighting or dealing with the situation of radiation workforce in the US. So alarms sounded over declining US radiation professional workforce. And why I am mentioning this is that our Vancouver Call for Action is explicitly cited in this article. And in addition, they also highlight our efforts, the efforts of ICRP to include young scientists and engage them in radiological protection and to bring them into our field. And in that article, it states that our Menti program brings new ideas to the ICRP committees and task groups, and the participation of the mentees helps make the occupation more attractive to young people. So, and this is already a very important aspect. If we try to engage with young scientists, with young researchers, with young professionals in our field, we try to educate them, yes, but at the same time, we benefit. We really benefit from their views. It's a two-way process. And the article ends discussing the ICRP Menti program and ends ICRP, other radiation professional organizations might follow suit. So this is just an example that what we are doing on our symposia is important, not just for us, but also for the rest of the world, if you like. Well, and this leads me back to our program. And a closer look you will notice that there is a special session, the next generation of scientists and professionals tomorrow. And I invite you to join this session in particular because it shows how young scientists engage in the work of ICRP, how they contribute and in the way enter our fields. And this is important for us because they are our future. With this, I would like to finish my presentation. I thank you all for coming, and I would like to wish you very interesting discussions, fruitful discussions, and of course also do not forget to visit the area here, to visit Tokyo, and enjoy Japan. Thank you very much. Should I just continue?
Go ahead.
Okay. So now let's come to the second part of this morning's session. This is the presentation of the Lindell Medal for the promotion of radiological protection. Let me first say a few words about the medal and about Lindell. This is how it looks like, by the way, and it's quite heavy. I just carried it. It's very nice. It's dedicated to Lindell, who lived from 1922 to 2016. Bo was ICRP scientific secretary from 1957 to 1962. He was a main commission member from 1963 to 1985, and he served as ICRP chair from 1977 to 1985. Bo played a central role in the development of the 1977 recommendations of ICRP. Probably all of you know that's laid down in ICRP publication 26. And the Lindell Medal is awarded every second year in memory of him and his contributions. We started with that in 2017. It's meant for early to mid-career individuals who have made a significant contribution to the promotion of radiological protection in the spirit of Lindell. It will be awarded every second year at the ICRP's biennial symposia. So we have to do it now. And the first medal was awarded in 2018 at the 90th anniversary year of ICRP. And you may know that ICRP was founded in Stockholm in Sweden. So the first medal was awarded again when the main commission was back in Stockholm in Sweden at the 90 years anniversary of ICRP. The first awardee was Nicole Martinez from the US, who gave her lecture on finding common ground between science, ethics, and experience. Liz Ainsbury from the UK was the second, who spoke on the use of interdisciplinary, stakeholder-driven radiation protection research in support of medical uses of ionizing radiation. And in Vancouver, in Canada, 2021, Haru Ogino from Japan was the laureate, and he spoke about inclusive, accountable, transparent, the direction we should take for the benefit of present and future generations. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the winner of the Lindell Medal this year. And this is Ludovic Vaillant from France. Now, Ludovic, he works at CEPN in France. He has been engaged in many projects focusing on the practical implementation of the principle of optimization of radiological protection in the nuclear industry. He's a board member of the French Radiation Protection Society. This is what he does at home in France. But in addition, he finds time to serve and work on topics for ICRP. And when I looked at the list of activities he's involved in for ICRP, I mean, it's just amazing. And just to list some of them, he has been a member of Committee 1 since 2021, a member of Task Group 98 on exposures from contaminated sites since 2014, Task Group 115, Radiological Protection in Space, since 2020, Task Group 119, dealing with diseases of the circulatory system, since 2021. He co-chairs Task Group 122 on detriment for cancer risk since 2022, yes. And finally, he became chair of Task Group 123 on the classification of effects last year. So many of these topics, all of these topics are important, and many are especially important for the review of the current system of radiological protection we have embarked on. So it's my great pleasure to award the Lindell Medal to Ludovic. I think he deserves it, and I think he deserves an applause, right?
So Ludovic, please come to the stage. Yeah.
And it's now my pleasure to show him the Lindell Medal. And this is how it looks like with his name on it. Okay, this was the pleasant part for you, and now it's your duty, as you know, to give us a lecture on a topic which is important for you, and we are really looking forward to your lecture. Ludovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Werner, for the kind words and kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, dear colleagues. It's really an honor to be here today to commemorate Lindell. My lecture is entitled Assessing and Managing Radiological Risk. I think it's a good summary of what CEPN has been doing over almost 50 years now. And so it's a good summary of my day-to-day work over the last 20 years. With regards to the content of my presentation, I will start with a few slides about the external costs of the nuclear fuel cycle. And then I will jump into the main part, which is about radiological risk, detriment, and the system of radiological protection. There will be nothing new there. What I want there is to share with you my thoughts about the system of radiological protection. I will try to highlight what I see as challenges, or at least questions that I have with regards to the system, and I will end my presentation with some general concluding remarks. So let's start with the external cost of the nuclear fuel cycle. When I joined CPN 20 years ago, one of my first jobs was to update the external cost of the nuclear fuel cycle. So what are the external costs? Well, these are the costs of effect or impact which are associated with the production of electricity, but which are not included in the price of electricity. The methodology for the nuclear fuel cycle was developed by CPN before I joined CPN in the frame of a European project called Externalities of Energy from 1990 to 1995. The basic idea behind the methodology was that the external costs of the nuclear fuel cycle were associated with human health impacts due to the discharge of radionuclides into the environment. The methodology, called impact pathway methodology, consists basically in 5 different steps. The first step was about defining systems for the different steps of the nuclear fuel cycle, from uranium mining up to radioactive waste storage. Then it was about modeling dispersion of radionuclides into the environment, considering both atmospheric and gaseous discharge and liquid discharge. Based on this, we did assess collective dose of a different time scales and space scales. We used this collective dose to calculate a number of health impacts, and then we used different tools, such as the value of statistical life, to assess the cost of this impact. With regards to the collective dose, we use different space scale, local, regional, and global. And we were calculating collective dose up to 1,000 and even more kilometers from the discharge points. With regards to the time scales, we were assessing collective dose up to 100,000 years, basically. And for the health impact, we basically use risk factors from publication 60, which are outlined in this table. This means that for a collective dose of 20 men-sievert, we had 1 case of fatal cancer that we were then using to calculate some cost. I'm pretty much aware that the methodology is far from being perfect. And I have to say that we should not use collective dose to assess a number of health impacts. This is clearly outlined in publication 147 of ICRP and in many others publications of the Commission. Still, that was a methodology, and as a young professional, I was doing what I was asked to do. After a couple of years, Thierry Schneider, who was then deputy director of CPN, asked me to go to some university and to present our methodology, our results, some comparison with other sources of electricity, oil, gas, wind, and so on. I present my work to the students, and I got some questions, which was for me a good sign, because it means that the students were listening to me. All the questions almost were related to publication 60 risk factors. What is detriment? How is it calculated? What does it mean? I have to say that I was not able to answer a single of these questions. So I went back to CPN and I asked my colleagues about these risk factors, how they are calculated, what is detriment. And I was advised to go into publication 60 and to read about how detriment was calculated. So I jumped into publication 60, in fact, an XP, which provides all the detailed calculations of detriment. I have to say that for someone who has no background in epidemiology or radiation biology, it was quite a challenge to understand this annex, but still it was pretty interesting. I noticed when I was reading this annex, this table there on the right side of the slides. So there was some comparison between publication 60 risk factor and publication 26 risk factor. I understood that finally detriment was not such a new concept, that was something old. So I told myself that maybe it would be good to go into publication 26. And when you start, in fact, reading publication 26, you need to go into publication 27 so-called index of harm. And it's also interesting to go to publication 9 and 8 and so on. I learned a lot of things about risk, radiological risk assessment. I have to say that publication 9 is one of my favorites. And this is one of my favorite quotes from publication 9 from 1966. At the time, in fact, we basically have no idea about what's happening below 1 sievert. What we do know, what the Commission know at that time, is that there is an excess of leukemia and probably other solid cancer above 1 sievert. Still, the Commission is going to make a very strong decision, which is outlined in this quote. The Commission sees no practical alternative for the purpose of radiological protection to assuming a linear relationship between dose and effect, and that doses act cumulatively. It's a very strong statement. This is so-called LNT. Since then, there has been an endless debate on LNT, and there is still a debate on LNT. And I think that from a scientific point of view, it's always good to have some debates. But I think also that from a practical point of view, this was and this is still the best approach for the management of radiological risk. Publication 9 was, I would say, a turn point in the system of radiological protection. And this is clearly outlined in the history of the Commission and its policies by Jack Valentine and Roger Clark that you can find in publication 109. They clearly explain that before publication 9, the objective of the system is about preventing deterministic effect. With publication 9, with stochastic effect, it is not only about preventing deterministic effect using limitation of dose, it's also about managing the risk associated with stochastic effect. And here comes a lot of question. What is an acceptable level of risk? What are reasonable means to reach an acceptable level of risk? I think that since publication 9, basically optimization of radiological protection becomes the main driver of the system of radiological protection. The question of acceptability of risk or reasonableness is a key question for the system of radiological protection in almost all exposure situations, I think. If you have a careful look to publication 60, you will find with regards to acceptable level of risk, 1 or 2 pages in Annex C.3 entitled Convention on Acceptable Risk. Within these 1 or 2 pages, there is one reference that was, to me, very important. It's a reference to a report from a Royal Society study group entitled Risk Assessment, the Assessment and Perception of Risk, and it was from 1983, 40 years ago. I was really influenced as a young professional that what I discovered in this report, it is really full of wisdom. I just want to quote a couple of sentences from this report. The first one is, the background spectrum of risk has been often conveyed as a possible source of information about the acceptability of risks. It has become abundantly clear from these attempts that there is no simple relationship between the acceptance of a risk and its detriment. There is not and cannot be a single acceptable of risk. I think it is very important to bear this in mind when we discuss about risk communication and when we discuss with stakeholders about radiological risk. Another important quote, particularly when the perception of risk plays a major role in modifying the conclusion that would have been based on risk estimation alone, issues of public awareness, consultation, public involvement, and public perception to the decision-making process become more important. I have to say that when I started at CPN and when I heard about the stakeholder engagement process, I was not really convinced by the process. But experience showed that it is completely true. In Task Group 98, which deals with site areas contaminated by past human activities, we face this question of how to define an end state after remediation. And there, I have to say that stakeholder engagement is a very important aspect of the process. In the task group, we have a draft report, and we are trying to use experience draws from a different case study. One of these case studies is about the remediation of the Rocky Flat site. And here, when you have a careful look about the lessons learned from remediation of Rocky Flat, what you find is, for instance, this quote from the URI representative. Comparisons of exposure to residual contamination at Rocky Flats to other sources such as medical treatment, living at altitude or radon gas, were met with cheese and skepticism. The second quote is from John Till from the US during his Lewis and Taylor lecture in 2014. Stakeholders' participation can make risk assessment more understandable, less fuzzy, and more acceptable in the end. In my view, these two quotes really echo what was found in this report from the Royal Society in 1983. What you can find also in this report are some numbers. These reports indicate that it is useful to provide some typical figures which government and regulatory agencies could be in mind. The different terms which are used in the reports. It is said that an annual risk of deaths of 1 in 100 should be described as unacceptable. Basically, 1% of risk of death is something like 100 to 200 millisievert per year. It is also mentioned, for instance, that when the risk of death is as low as 10 to the minus 5 or 10 to the minus 6 per year, then few people would commit some resources to decrease furthermore the level of risk. 10 to the minus 6 is equal to 10 microsievert per year. And between this upper level and this lower level, this is a region between where the real difficult issues for risk management arise. There was an additional term which was used in this report. It was about tolerable risk. Tolerable risk is something like 0.1%, which is equal to something like 10 to 20 millisievert per year. This is this value that was used, among other considerations, to set up the dose limit for workers, 20 millisievert average over 5 years. I think it's always good to be in mind these numbers. I mean, they don't reflect an individual level of risk, but they give you a good idea of what you are dealing with, especially when dealing with site remediation, you have to face multi-pollutants issues. You may have radionuclides, but you may have also some heavy metals and so on. It's also interesting, to try to understand how safe is the dose limit, to compare our standards in radiation protection with standards which are used for the type of pollutants. Here's an example. I think this article was achieved by the German Commission on Radiological Protection, and I'm looking at you, Werner. And an interesting point there is that occupational risk due to exposure to genotoxic substances that are currently considered tolerable are a factor 10 to 100 lower, I insist, than occupational risk considered tolerable in Germany due to exposure to ionizing radiation. I think this outlines the importance of optimization of radiological protection. Currently, the average exposure for workers in the nuclear industry is not just below 20 millisievert per year. It's something like 1 millisievert per year. Optimization of radiological protection is, in my view, a very important, if not the most important principle of our system. I would say that after 8 to 10 years at CPN, I was pretty fine with the system of radiological protection. For me, it could be summarized with these two figures. Optimization to deal with the risk of stochastic effect, and dose limitation to prevent from tissue reaction. For me, this, dose limitation, it was something black or white. Below the threshold, there is no effect, and above the threshold, there is an effect. All of this is, as indicated already before in the introduction of Werner, pretty well described in publication 26 of ICRP. I think that our system nowadays is really somehow what was described in publication 26. But in 2012, 2012, I was invited to be a rapporteur at a workshop organized by CAPPH entitled Science and Value in Radiological Protection Decision Making. It was here in Tokyo in 2012, not a long time after the terrible accident at Fukushima Daiichi. One of the topics was non-cancer effect, and I was assigned to this topic as a rapporteur. And during one of the presentations, I heard Choron Andre, who is a former member of Committee 1, saying this: epidemiology has provided findings that suggest that a whole body exposure of 0.5 gray or less can increase the risk of stroke and heart disease. I was surprised by the level of the dose threshold, 0.5 grays, because I have in mind this publication 9 and what was done in 1966 when we knew only what was happening at the level of 1 sievert. It was the first time I heard about publication 118. So as for the publication, I tried to go into this publication and to understand what it was about. Publication 118 provides updated estimates of practical threshold dose for tissue injury defined at the level of 1% of incidence. It was a surprise for me to understand that the dose threshold, it was not black or white. It was not an effect or no effect. It was more gray, in fact. This dose threshold does not imply that no biological effect occurs at lower dose. It merely defines a dose above which a specific effect becomes clinically apparent in a small percentage of individuals. I learned a lot from this publication. I was surprised also by the way we did assess this 0.5 gray as dose threshold for disease of the circulatory system. In fact, what was used was an excess relative risk per gray coming from the epidemiology, a background incidence of 30 to 58%, which reflects the background incidence of DCS among the general publication. And it was explained that with this excess of risk, with this background incidence, a dose of 0.5 grays basically induce 1.2 to 2% of excess to the background incidence for DCS. The numbers are pretty high if you have in mind this 5% per sievert for stochastic effect, cancer and heritable effect. You have something which is really in the same order of magnitude. Finally, what I understood from publication 118 is that, on the contrary to what I thought before, the frequency and incidence of tissue reaction increase with doses among the population, like stochastic effect. It's just that this increase starts to be really something you can see starting from a certain level of dose. The severity of a tissue reaction at the level of an individual increase with the dose. As for dose limit and stochastic effect, threshold dose is not a limit between what is safe and what is unsafe, and it depends on individual characteristics. And finally, results from epidemiology are used to define the threshold dose for DCS based on 1% incidence in addition to the background incidence. So finally, if you use excess relative risk and a high background incidence, the threshold dose becomes very low. A question I had, and that we are discussing in TG 119, dealing with DCS, do biological damage occurring below the dose threshold and contributing to DCS occurrence correlate with other damage associated with other risk factors? And DCS is clearly a topic which lead to a number of publications. And just this year, I just took two publications from this year, 2023, dealing with results for meta-analysis and epidemiology, basically focusing on DCS. The first one on the left is from Mark Lindell. And what you can find when you read this article, I guess it is a statement from the editors. The findings, which are presenting in this article, have implications for patients who undergo radiation exposure as part of their medical care, as well as policymakers involved in managing radiation risk to radiation workers and the public. It's a very strong statement, and it raises some questions. At 0.5 grays, numbers associated with detriment linked to cancer and heritable effect are quite comparable with the incidence of DCS. But in fact, because biology and mechanism behind the health outcome differ, risk management approach differ. Anyway, whatever is the decision, optimization of radiological protection allows to keep exposure far below the threshold for most, if not all, workers and the public. This is outlined in publication 118, and I think, once again, it shows the importance of optimization of radiological protection. Another question I have in mind is, should DCS be considered as a health outcome at low dose and low dose rate, and somehow involved in detriment calculation? I think we need to answer the question, and the question is not new. It was raised in 2012 during this Science and Value workshop in Tokyo. Speaking about detriment, ICRP task group 102 that was mentioned by Werner, which was chaired by Nobuo Ikoban Sensei, clarified the methodology which is used for detriment calculation in publication 103. And doing so, it's paved the way for the update of detriments. You can find all the details in publication 152. With regards to the work of task group 122, I have a couple of questions. The first question is that we are still using a DDRF of 2. And I think that the inference of risk at low dose and low dose risk is a key question that we need to deal with in task group 122, building on the results, for instance, of task group 91, dealing with DDRF. What is surprising there, and what is a difficult question when you discuss with people outside the radiation protection field, is the numbers you have for skin. If you have a look to nominal risk coefficient, skin accounts for almost 60% of the nominal risk. But when you move to detriment, skin is not even 1% of the detriment. I think we really needed to focus on this and probably to find an improved way to account for skin cancer when calculating detriment. Another important question is the question of heritable effects. Heritable effect account for less than 5% of the detriment in publication 103. It was close to 20% in publication 60. I think it's very important issues, especially with regards to the public. There is a lot of focus on this heritable effect, whatever the numbers are. And I think we need to think about the best possible methodology to try to assess the detriment related to these effects. And I think it's a very important question for stakeholders. Finally, outlined in the green box there is a severity rating schemes, which is used to move from nominal risk incidence up to detriment. In the old publication, what you can find is that a possible outcome associated with ionizing radiation exposure is a shortening of life expectancy. Maybe it is something that we could investigate. There have been work and calculation already achieved with regards to the use of DALI, for instance, to express the risk associated with ionizing radiation. And frankly speaking, I'm not saying that we are going to move into DALI to express detriment, but I think it's for us to try other scheme for the severity rating of the nominal risk. So now I jump into some very general concluding remarks. I do believe that the system of protection is consistent. It is robust and effective. In my day-to-day practice, I can see that those are really decreasing, for instance, in the nuclear industry. Nevertheless, science raises questions, and I try to highlight a couple of them. And I think that the system may adjust to ensure that the protective goals, it is about protecting the human and protecting their environments, are reached. We need to provide answer to this question, and I think that these answers must be clear, justified, making the best use of science. And science is not only about what we know, it's also about what we don't know. And values. I think prudence is a key value of the system. I think it is also very important to bear in mind what for and how the system was developed by our predecessors, and Lindell was one of them. Finally, I still have 10 seconds, and I want to thank a lot of people, so I try to be fast. I want to thank, first of all, my colleagues from CPN, past I present, And I really want to thank Jacques Lochard and Thierry Schneider, who are just there. Thank you for your patience. I know I can be a bit stubborn, but I'm trying to improve myself. I want to thank also the ICRP family. It's really a great honor to be a member of this family. And I want to address, I could thank a lot of people, but I want to address my special thanks to Nobuo Ikoban Sensei and Dominique Laurier, Chair of Committee 1. I have a lot of questions. I don't have a lot of answers, but I have a lot of questions, and they always take the time to answer my question and to provide me very clear answers. So thank you very much. I want to thank also the board members of CPN, EDF, IRSN, and the Atomic Energy Commission. Without their support, there would be no CPN. I would not be there, so thank you very much. And I think Bernard Le Guen and Jean-Christophe Gariel are in the room, so thank you for your support. Finally, I'm thinking about my kids today with Honorel, and I'm thinking also about to my partner, Anna, and my friends from the north and from Paris, and from everywhere. And finally, I want to thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very good symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ludovic, for your Lindell presentation, and congratulations again on the award, well deserved.